is affirmative action, and I first became interested in this when doing a lot of research for an essay, and I first read it as like, what is that? And some of you may be wondering the same thing. And the use of affirmative action, I believe, is outdated. It was necessary in the beginning when it was first being instilled, but no longer is needed in these times. And I hope to inform you on what affirmative action is and how it's become a very widely debated issue and what could be done instead of affirmative action. Affirmative action is when an institution actively engages in efforts to improve opportunities for historically excluded groups, such as African Americans. And it was first focused on employment and education. It still is mainly. And it is the outcome of the American Civil Rights Movement. President John F. Kennedy was the first to use the term affirmative action in an executive order directed towards government contractors and told them to take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. Colleges and universities began adopting recruitment policies with affirmative action in mind. After the years following this executive order, and enrollment rates for Latinos and African American students increased after this. It's become an issue of great debate, and the constitutionality of it has been questioned. It's said to violate the Equal Protections Clause of the 14th Amendment, and that basically says that states are prohibited from denying anyone jurisdiction, in their jurisdiction, equal protection of the laws, which means that states are denied the ability to discriminate. This creates a problem when it comes to colleges giving preferential treatment to the minority groups. It's also been brought to the Supreme Court in various cases, such as Gratz versus Bollinger in 2003. The University of Michigan's undergraduate program used affirmative action and awarded points to minority students. So they had an advantage when they were applying and were more likely to get in than some other students. And Jennifer Gratz, who was a white female, was denied admission to the university and sued. The case ended up being appealed to the Supreme Court, where the university's admissions policy was ruled to be unconstitutional because it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And in the case of Hopwood versus Texas, the Supreme Court ruled that a university's interest in a diverse student body is no longer as compelling as it used to be, and that the race should no longer be used as a factor for admissions in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. It was not just that these instances where that show affirmative action has become an issue. A study conducted by Mark Perry of the American Enterprise Institute revealed that African Americans with average grades and test scores were almost 3 times as likely to get into medical school than Asian Americans with similarly average qualifications. And Thomas Espenshade of Princeton found that some colleges even have different standards for the minimum SAT scores they require. Asian Americans' test scores have to exceed those of whites by 140 points, and by African Americans or Hispanics by 270 points, and African Americans by 450 points. I propose that colleges and universities should not even ask about race on like their applications and just not make it a question. So it's more of like choosing someone based on their merit or ability. And when affirmative action was first being implemented, it was necessary to give others the push they needed because of the discrimination that there was in the 60s and before then. And when it was first implemented in the 1960s, most minorities were poor, few served in public offices, and very few could be found in colleges, corporations, law firms, and banks. But this is no longer true today. After switching to a race-neutral enrollment method, the colleges of Berkeley and UCLA had a record number of African American students graduate on time. The previously low rates were a result of what they call a mismatch that occurred because the students that were less qualified were getting in, and they wound up in institutions that they weren't academically suited for. So maybe they should have instead went to a junior college or a community college for 2 years and then transferred so they'd be more ready. So colleges and universities should not use race as a factor for admissions, and affirmative action is outdated. President Lyndon Johnson said, "You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say you are free to compete with all the others, and still believe that you have been completely fair." This pretty much sums up why affirmative action was implemented in the first place, but no longer it is necessary. Thank you.